Alright, folks, this is part 2 of the road to 1,000 rapid ELO. So right now, if we go ahead and take a little look-see at the account real quick, right? Last time we were at 530 rapid ELO. And if you will see, right here, 600. We've pushed all the way up to 600. And I have like 3 games that are absolutely splendid, that were just absolutely gorgeous on the board here. So if I can find my games real quick, pop over to games. Not to spoil anything, but we have a game where I multiple sacrifices, multiple. I'll tell you what, all right. So we have a game with multiple sacrifices, and a couple of high rated games. So we're just gonna check them out. We're gonna hop over into no, not game review actually. We're just gonna look at the game. We're gonna look at it as it is. So I'm playing a Karo Khan here. He just plops his pawn into the center just to kind of close the position out, limit my space. I like to kind of just throw my bishop out just so I'm able to actually have that bishop out before closing the position, just so he can't really advance his pawn any further and do any naughty things to my position. So I'm just developing, trying to pop my knights out just so they're not on ugly squares and limiting their movement here. Now, I just play up here, and there is a lot of pressure that the opponent has developed with the queen and the bishop on the same square, and also even ideas like plopping the knight into this position if it were to be defended by a move like pawn to h4. And on this side of the board, I am just trying to get some sort of counterplay, be able to get into the position and maybe even a move like queen here, and harassing this pawn after stripping the defense of the knight there, and being able to win this pawn and take center control over the game. But he sacrifices a bishop in the early game. I take back, of course, and he takes with his queen. Now, I did some analysis of this game while it was actually playing out, and I didn't mind this position. I didn't mind this position because he doesn't have any counterplay. He doesn't have much going on as far as movement, and it looks like he's very close to getting his queen trapped. He has to be very careful in this position, otherwise he will get his queen trapped in some way or another if I play my position right. And if he wants to get counterplay, again, he could eventually play like knight into the position, but at that point I would probably just simply trade. Like there's this move doesn't work. Obviously, it's defended twice, and you would have to, do something ugly. That doesn't work again. You do something ugly to get his rook out and into the game. So he doesn't have any counterplay. He simply doesn't have any counterplay. And I just start playing into the position, pretty much funneled on attacking his queen there. And then I do trade off this bishop because I don't like the future for this bishop, especially with the knight being moved out of the way. There's a lot more pressure being built into the position, with the bishop being able to just come over here and just put pressure on this pawn, or even in the future defend this square once this pawn were to move. So he plays back into the position because he is, doing pretty bad, because the only square he has is this square for the queen. Like I said, this square taken, this square taken, this square taken. He can't move anywhere with that queen. So he plays in. I trade the bishops here, or the bishop for the knight. And at this point, I'm just getting into his position. The roles are completely switching, and I am starting to attack. Um, and at this point, he's trying to get some counterplay on this side of the board like I was doing in the beginning of the game. But at this point, it's a little bit too late for him. And I could have converted this endgame a lot better than what I did. As we see here, I use a pin on the bishop, and he plays a very solid move, is just moving his queen into the position to defend this, attacking this, and forcing my hand on a move. Like, I have to move here. And I got myself into a little bit of a tricky position here, because I can't play back, because he'll just push his pawn up, and ultimately it's not going to be good. I could have played a move like here, which I think I did, or I was thinking of a move like that, but it really just didn't work. It just gave him a lot more versatility with this rook and pulling it into the position. And at this point, I just thought I'm going to trade because I still have a lot of attacking power on his king's side here. We start trading off pawns. It's a game of just trade. This pawn is hanging. Never mind. It's defended. I'm stupid. And, you know, on this side of the board, we see a trade of bishop for knight. He comes into the position and takes one of my unprotected pawns. And this square is protected twice, so there's really no reason for him to be taking it. And then we get into a little bit of this box here. Like, it is just a very boxy position where all of our pieces are strenuously fighting to assert dominance over the opposing person. And a move like this would have not been too bad for him at some point, because I would have been overwhelmed. You know, he's up a piece in this position for attacking power. This rook would have been overboard for defenders. He takes, I take. He takes, I take. Now it's a simplified position with a rook, and you know, it's an endgame where I am losing. He has progress here, plus 3 more pawns. And the only way that I saw that I would win this game, I cannot advance this pawn very easily, and my opponent would have to blunder a lot of moves. He would have to blunder this pawn, and then wind up not bringing his rook into the game properly. So it wouldn't have really worked, and I knew I was at a complete loss position unless I got this position here, where his rook is too far gone. He cannot get back for this back rank. My rook is gone. It's gone. There's no stopping it from that back rank, but he always does have this escape square. So the only idea that I had is playing here, blocking his position, going back with the rook, and checkmating him ultimately. And that is what I do. He comes back, he checks me, I pop out, and at this point it would have been a stalemate if he either noticed or acknowledged the strength of this position for me. It would have just been a stalemate. We would have repeated moves. But he doesn't. I checkmate him. You know, this square, they're all blocked in. Bang. Beautiful checkmate here. From a very lost position, and also he did have 13 seconds on the clock, so he wasn't really able to think of a quick and easy way to convert the position. I mean, he should have just put his rook behind one of his pawns and pushed it after protecting his back rank. If he just kept his rook on his back rank and just kept pushing pawns, he would have defeated me in that endgame. But now we have a second game here, and this was a very interesting checkmate, and I don't get to see these very often because usually they're back ranks or later game checkmates. If I can revert all the way back to the beginning of the game, I play a London, which is, again, what I play all the time. I don't really play anything other than the accelerated London as of right now. And I get into a normal London position. He's putting pressure on my bishop, and I like this position because I still have the ability to castle long as there's not any implications with that. If he doesn't launch some sort of an attack and take a bunch of space here, going here, and maybe something like here, and threatening some of my pieces here after moving his queen in, I have possibilities to be able to castle here, so I don't mind pulling my pawn out into the open here after recapturing that bishop. And that is eventually what happens after trading out the knights. I put my knight into the position. He takes my knight, or my bishop, with his bishop. I take, and he castles kingside, which doesn't make any sense, especially after a move ago you opened up my kingside with this rook just glaring down on your king. Didn't make sense to me. I knew that I had something going, especially after that trade with the bishop there. I mean, I just have a brigade knocking down on your door. There's not really much he can do to defend this very well. But I didn't convert it very well. That's the thing. I did not convert this endgame very well. Once I get to this position, I didn't really know exactly what to do. I could have probably hopped my knight into the game a little earlier. I just wanted to castle and maybe start attacking with some of these pawns. I think that was my idea. After sliding my rook, excuse me by the way, I keep hiccuping, I ate Chipotle, which was fantastic, but now I feel like a fat ass and I keep hiccuping. So, my idea is to push these pawns. After giving a check and taking a couple of his free pawns at this point, I start getting the idea of moving these pawns in, and I sacrifice my rook because I need to trade pieces, essentially. Because I know I have something going here, and at this point his king is safe. He has his rook, his queen, and his other rook linked on the back rank, which is also not very good because once he starts to get mobile, it's not going to be a very simple position for me. It really is not. And, you know, we get into this position. I check him. So he can't take. I can't take that because, you know, he's got way too much power just sitting on this back rank, which ultimately led for me to just get into a very, very bad position where I am down a knight here, or down a rook, an entire rook, and I just have to keep checking because he just has too much power on that back rank yet again. And it develops into a game where I just don't know what to do. I mean, I'm almost completely lost. He's about to bring his other rook into the game here and just start winning pieces, winning material, and eventually create a mating net by possibly combining one of these pawns to block my king in. And then I find this. I find this smothered kind of mate where if I push this pawn up, he doesn't have this move, he won't have this move, and every other square for him is completely blocked in. And I play it, he does not see it, because he's so blind. Mind you, he's got all this material coming down the line at my defense, and he's probably sitting there having a field day thinking he's about to get a nice, clean checkmate on me. And then I checkmate him. I hit him with a beautiful checkmate after being in an almost completely dead lost position because of my poor skills, positioning in the early game, and then just not being able to convert the mid game after he blundered his king side. So, beautiful game here. And now let's move on to the grand finale game, which has two very vital sacrifices implemented into the game. It was an absolute haymaker of a game, and just beautiful conversion by my part, and two brilliant moves from yours truly here. Two brilliant moves, which is very hard to come by in a game where you're 582 rated. Being able to convert a position. I mean, a lot of brilliant moves from earlier rated players come by mistake, and they look at it. They're like, "What did I do? That was brilliant." So I play a Karo Khan. He takes, which I love this position because I'm able to get immediate control over the center. I just have complete control over the center. He's got one pawn in the center and doesn't really have a clear way to be able to dominate in the center here. I mean, he could push this pawn up, but I'm just going to immediately start attacking it with moves like knight here, and then after that I can probably, just start attacking here. And just kicking all of his pieces out and controlling the center. So I play back with the bishop here. I trade off those dark square bishops. I just offered him a kind of trade, and I didn't know if I really liked that. I feel like my dark squares in this game were going to be a lot more valuable. But also, I like having my queen on a dark square, so I'm able to just kind of get into the position pretty easy. I castle, pop my pawn up just so I don't have to worry about any of that back rank shenanigans that happened in the game adjacent to that, or the first game that where I won that one with the back rank potential. And I trade off my bishop here, and I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I like that I did this necessarily. Just because I was kind of sniping. I was pinning this queen to this pawn. Actually, my board vision is really bad right now, but putting some more pressure over the diagonal of the board, making it very hard for my opponent to castle. Because I would be quick to attacks. If he decided to castle, this pawn would be a little bit weak at a certain point, because eventually he's got to move his queen, he's got to get his pieces into the game. This bishop could have been anchored, but he's going to want to get his rook into the game and start playing chess, but he wouldn't be able to do that with my bishop sniping on the other side of the board, or it wouldn't be as easy as he would like. So we trade, he castles, and now I'm just starting to advance my pawns here into the position, because it's not really that clear as to what move is good necessarily. Everything is kind of closed off in this position. I mean, there's moves where I just do this and maybe have a trade here and get into the position, and after moving my rooks in and moving my knight out of the way, and then I'm attacking this, threatening to sacrifice the rook, but it's not very clear. It's not very clear in this game. So he takes, I take with the pawn, and then he starts advancing a little bit more, and I didn't really know what to do, except for the fact that I like this move, because it is defended once, twice, 3 times, but it was pinned here. So I really did like this move, and I liked that this pawn was very, very weak, and if I stripped the defense of his queen from that pawn, it would basically be a completely winning position, because I would just have so much versatility in some sort of an attack on his king side. And then I do it. I push that pawn. He plays back. It was a little bit of an empty fork, because I can't really take here, because he would have just taken my queen. My queen is not defended. Maybe it would have been a smarter move to kind of play back with my rook. So I could have won that knight in this game, in this instance. And he just starts advancing his pawns, and it's starting to look quite scary from my position here. And it's not it's not a clear game. It is not a clear game. Here, let's see if we can flip the board here. I mean, this looks pretty good for White's position. Because again, I don't have clear attacks. I can try to trade the queens, but it's just tricky. I mean, you have all of these pawns, all of this material just coming down the line, ready to attack my king, and it's a very, very delicate position at this point. And then he takes that pawn and tries to pull apart and weaken my center, which he does very successfully because this pawn is completely, fairly weak. If it's attacked by another pawn, there's really not much I can do to save that pawn in the long run. So I take with my queen here, with ideas like pushing this, I believe, and just clearing it, and, after pulling my rook into the game and, defending it, being able to get further down the board and actually start planning an attack. And I really like this move here of just straight up attacking the bishop. So that is what I play. I play up with the pawn, attacking the bishop. And this is where it gets really, really interesting and a very, very dynamic game, where I just start to fucking beat the living hell out of my opponent. And he moves his knight back, threatening this, and I don't care. I genuinely do not care. I sacrifice the queen in the center of the board, taking his bishop with my pawn, with ideas to go here, promote, checkmate on the back rank of the board. And there is nothing that he can necessarily do about it except for moving some of his pieces, but my position is going to be way too powerful. I'm going to have a queen on the back side of his board and start taking pawns and disrupting his entire position while I still have two rooks. And I have a completely sound and safe position, and especially after he takes, I could have taken, but I do not. He goes there, and I don't care. I just ignore the threat. I'm not looking to take back. I completely, cleanly sacrifice a queen, essentially. He plays back with ideas like moving here and protecting his queen, or king. But there's, at this point, nothing he can do. He cannot defend against this pawn because he can't get his king in. And I just play into the position and attack the queen, which I think is a fairly reasonable move because he cannot take this. It is defended, and then I am attacking his knight and threatening to promote two queens on his side of the board with... I mean, this is just an absurd game. This is an absurd game that you don't get to see very, very frequently, especially from a 582 rated player. And he pulls back, and his only idea, I think, at this point is just to start attacking these pawns and building up the pressure against my king here. And I completely disregard that, and I sacrifice my rook for his center pawn. I completely sacrifice the rook in ideas that if he takes, I promote, he pops down. Remember, this knight is mostly protected. He can't take with the queen. So I'd be taking with the pawn, he'd be taking with the rook, or he'd be taking with the rook, I'd be taking with the pawn, and then he would be able to take my pawn. But point is, he takes here, sacrificing the rook. I play up, promote to a queen, he pops down, I take his rook, and now, again, at this point, I am threatening to take his second rook, and all I would be up a rook and, like two knights. And there would be absolutely nothing he could do in this position. And that is exactly what I do after sacrificing a queen and a rook in this position. He pops down, I come back down, take his rook, and I would have been able to bash this out by just, eating up his pawns and stabilizing the position a lot more, getting my pieces out of danger, maybe with ideas like here, or I'm stupid, here, with a fork of the rook and the queen, or the king here. Or I was, thinking that this move would be a lot more sound, just cleanly winning a rook either way. But he blunders here fairly significantly, because right here, this is checkmate. He doesn't have this move. He doesn't have this move. He will not have this move because the queen will be attacking, and all of the squares around him are completely smothered, and I checkmate him after sacrificing a rook and a queen, and eventually bolstering myself to a somewhat sound 600 rapid ELO.